Hello. So I'm going live. Okay, I'm live on Instagram and Facebook now. Yay. Hopefully the connection is okay this week, and end up putting up a sheet behind my curtain because last week was just so bright. This morning was like super gloomy, and then right when I go get ready to do the live, it gets bright. Funny, huh? So if you are new to the group or my Instagram page, I am Andrea with Happy Cloud Creations, and today we will be going over block 2 of the Cloudy Day Quilt Sampler. Good morning, Lori. So I'll wait a couple seconds to see if a few more people jump on. So last week we went over the flying geese for it one time. So I'm not sure if you guys need that again this week. If you do, let me know and I'll go over that really quickly. Hi, Linda. Hi, Annabelle. Hi, Barbara. Getting people from all over. So I'm on the West Coast. I'm in Washington State. So it's 10:04 right now here. This ends up being the best time of day that I can do a live just because my son goes to school. So I just have the one kid at home right now. So that makes it a lot easier. The house is a lot quieter. I just throw a show on for her and I can do the live video. Hello, Joanna. Hello, Celestica. And hello, Granny Lori. So we got some people jumping on both Instagram and on Facebook. Good morning, Judy. Okay, you'd like a little refresh on the geese? Okay. Mary, good morning. Linda. You like the 4 at 1 time. I like the 4 at 1 time too. I have the pieces for the 4 at 1 time, so I can go over those again really quickly. All right, so maybe we can get started. So this week we are doing it's like a star block with some squares in the center. And then also I want to go over how I made my corner blocks with strip piecing. It makes it go a lot quicker than if you were to cut out the 8 squares of the color A and the 8 squares of the color E. I know it's in the directions it says to do that because if somebody's going scrappy, it might be easier just to cut 2.5-inch squares instead of strips. So let's see. We will go over it according to the pattern. So first you cut out all your pieces. Then we do the 4 at 1 time flying geese. And I will go over that right now. Hello, LaShawn. Good morning, Shannon. Good morning, Terry. Good morning, Amy. All right. So if you have the cheater sheet for the 1 at a time flying geese or the half square triangle flying geese, to find out what size we're making, you just go to the end of paragraph 3 and it says 4.5 by 8.5. So this week we'll be using the 4.5 by 8.5. You want to say hi? This is Snow. She decided she doesn't want to watch her show anymore, I guess. Why don't you go watch your show?
I'm hungry.
Okay, why don't you go get a little snack, okay?
Okay.
And then I put a cup right there if you want some water, okay?
Okay.
All right, back to the program. So we'll be using the 4.5 by 8.5 flying geese this week. And to make those 4 at 1 time, Annabelle's asking, is there any difference between the half square triangle flying geese and the 4 at 1 time flying geese? The only difference would be, yeah. Oh, sorry. Snowy pointed out I keep saying I'm sorry. I will try not to say I guess all the time. So this is a flying geese made 4 at 1 time. It would look the same as if you did a 1 at 1 time. If you made it with the half square triangles, basically you would have a seam down the center. If you're using a solid fabric, that's fine. Some people prefer not to, like if this was a print, people would prefer not to have a seam down their print. So like last week, my flying geese was made regular flying geese. So you would have a seam down the center if you had a, sorry about the, so you'd have a seam down the center, which would kind of interrupt your print. So if you had a directional print or just even the flowers, you would have a seam. So it is easier to do half square triangles just because that's a beginner piece to make, but you would have a seam basically. That's the only difference. Sorry. Good morning, Melanie. Good morning, Carrie. Good morning, Mary. Good morning, Mel. Good morning, Anne.
Mama,
yes.
Can I watch Power Rangers?
Okay.
Can
Okay. Sorry about that. So that's the only difference. I know if you made my Snowy Day quilt sampler, that was made out of all half square triangles. And I did that because I wanted that to be a beginner quilt. And that's why this one goes with more flying geese. So that it's kind of like a stepping stone. You made the easier one. Now you can do something a little more difficult. If you want to stick to the half square triangles and making your flying geese, that's perfectly fine too. If you're more comfortable with that. Some people don't care, like, feel that flying geese are kind of hard, and it does take practice. You know, quilting is a learning experience. We just keep practicing, and you get better and better. Morning, Mary. Okay. Can I have her? Sorry, Amy, you cannot have my daughter because she's my only daughter. I have one son, one boy, one son, one daughter. So sorry, you can't have her. Good morning, Sharon. So the fort one time flying geese. Is that backwards to you? I guess both ways. Okay, so what I do is I draw a line, and this time I just drew it a lot darker so you guys could see it this week. From one tip to the bottom. And then I line my foot up on this, and I will sew a 1/4 inch scant seam on both sides of this. If you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, you could always draw out these second lines, but you want to make sure you don't draw them out too far. I measured, I wonder if I can show you, from the line to this line is barely, maybe 1-2 thread widths smaller than the 4th on here. So when you're drawing that line, I would recommend, if you drew a line, to actually sew toward the inner portion of that line instead of on or on the outside of that line, because you want to make sure that your seam isn't too big. If your seam is too big, your geese will end up too small. If your seam is right on the 1/4 inch scant, they will end up perfect. If they're a little small, your flying geese will end up a little too big, and you have to trim it down, which sometimes I end up having to trim mine down just a tiny bit. Not a big deal. So I have to keep scrolling Facebook on my laptop because it doesn't just automatically populate the comments. So that's why I keep going over here. All right, Amy, you have a great day too. This will be saved to the group for later viewing if you need to watch it. Good morning, Lisa. Good morning, Heidi. Okay, so you sew a scant 1/4 inch on each side, and then you would cut down on the black line so that you end up with 2 little heart-shaped pieces. You want to press that, finger press the seams open gently, and press it with your iron, making sure to keep that line as straight as possible, because that way, if you make it a lot of motion, your seam might get wonky and your geese will not end up like you want them to. So keep that as flat as possible. and then you're going to add on another square. I like to draw my line on before I pin it on. It just makes it a little easier, but usually I use a hair marker, which just leaves a little indent in the fabric. And then you will, sorry about that, my husband's phone is ringing. Snow, can you grab Papa's phone? So I draw the line, and then I sew a 1/4 inch scant from each side of the line. I'm like, okay, should I just go run and turn it off? I'm sorry, guys. Okay, there we go. Sorry about the distractions today. Oh my goodness. Okay, so we're going to sew a 1/4 inch scant from each side of this line. When you do that, you'll know it is the correct distance when your seams will line up right here. If you can see, my seams lined up at each point intersections. And that's kind of where you can see that's the correct amount. And then you'll cut that, press it, finger press it open. There we go. And then we'll have our geese. And then you'll barely, oh my goodness, guys, sorry. You barely have anything that you need to trim off of that geese. Barely anything. And this week we'll be doing the 4.5 by 8.5 flying geese. Does anybody have any questions about the 4 at one time? I know I really like it just because they go together so much faster than the 1 at a time. I know, yeah, Granny, it is busy at my house today. What the? I don't know. It's just crazy, right? So if you have any questions, let me know along the way. Carolyn, if you're anxious at trying the 4 at one time, just get some scrap fabric. That's what I do with my tutorial pieces. Just get some scrap fabric and try it with that before ruining like your good fabric for your quilt. I know it takes a few times before they come out perfect. Sometimes they won't line up completely perfect on top, but then you just have to trim a little bit off the top. You just want to make sure when you're trimming those, you want to leave a 1/4 inch at the top of your geese. I want to cut this apart, but I kind of want to save it for tutorial reasons. But you want to make sure there's still a 1/4 inch at the top of your geese when you're trimming these. That way you don't cut off the tip of your triangle when you're sewing it to the other pieces. That's life, and we all understand. Thank you, Linda. It's like things that I don't expect to happen keep happening, and I'm not a professional YouTuber, guys, just so you know, because I know last week I did the video and there was just a bunch of sun behind me, and so then it was like shining on my cameras, and so it was all blurry for a while there. Sorry, guys. I need to get a little more professional videography. You're doing the 4 at one time, and you got it. Awesome, Annabelle. Awesome, Mary. So you like the 4 at one time too. Cool, cool. All right, so we got that underway. And then next we do the corner blocks. So that's really basic. You sew 2 squares together, always sewing right sides of fabric together. And then you'd want to nest the seams and sew the 2 rows together. What I like to do when you have a bunch of the same color, I ended up with my original one cutting a 2.5 by width of fabric, which was like 40 inches, strip of the color A and the color E. And then I sewed them together like this, right sides together, press it open toward the darker color, and then you have a strip. So with this block that I made this morning, since I'm using 1/4 inch cut or 1/4 yard cuts of fabric, the pieces ended up this size, and basically 9 inches long, by 2.5 because I wanted to conserve as much whole pieces of fabric. So I just cut like 3 strips of this. If you're using a fat quarter, you probably could do 2.5 by the 21-inch length to get all the pieces you need for one block. If you're doing all the quilts, A is the same color out of yardage. I think it's 1 or 2 of these type of units of 2.5 by 40 will make all the blocks you need. Okay, sorry about that, Instagram. I don't know, it paused for a couple seconds. So once you have this strip, imagine this is long or short if you're using shorter cuts, using scraps. I got those together, and then what I'm gonna do is when I go to cut these, you can't really see on my laptop me cutting it, but on Instagram I think you can. So what I do is when I'm cutting the edge, I like to line this seam up with the seam on my ruler, just so that it comes out all squared perfectly. So I like to cut the edge off. I need a new blade. I ordered some on Amazon and I got it. I just haven't put it on yet. And then I flip it around and I'm gonna measure 2.5 inches because we want the width of this to be 2.5 inches. And I line the block up on the seam on one of the lines in my ruler so that it's perfectly rectangular. Because sometimes we don't sew perfect straight lines. And so you may need to cut a couple, and then if your line is a little crooked, cut in a little further and trim it up on the other side so that you have, it's all perpendicular and all, is that the correct word, perpendicular? And it all fits together correctly and it's not crooked at all. So then we got our 2 pieces, which you'll end up needing 8 of these subcuts for one block. And only 4 of these blocks use these corners. So we have block number 2, block number 4, block number 6, and block number 8 will use these corners. If you're using all the same colors and you wanted to make all these corner blocks at once, you could, if you wanted to, make them ahead of time. So we got our 2 units, and you're going to want to nest them together, which is basically, you're going to want to butt those up together. One is ironed one way, one is ironed the other way. You see that, everyone? I like to pin them in place and sew them, which I did not sew one. So blah, pretend it's sewed, yay! And then you're gonna press it, finger press it open, and then press it either way. Oh, my screen went black. I'm not touching my screen enough, the screensaver went on. All right, so we got that piece. So we got the corner blocks, we have our flying geese, and then just we need to do the center block, which is really easy. I just sewed these basically. I like to chain piece my pieces. So I sewed these 2 together, these 2 together, and these 2 together all at one time. And then I went through and sewed this one on, this one on, and this one on to the, so then I had 3 strips. And then you want to press to the darker, to the darker. So you're pressing in to the center block and out to these so you can nest them all together nicely. And voila, you just have all your pieces. When you're sewing, when you're sewing them together, the strips together, I like to have my flying geese facing upward so that when you're sewing it, you want to make sure, where is it? Right here. You want to make sure that your seam doesn't go below this triangle seam. So if your seam is above, which would be a 1/4 inch scant, you're not going to cut off your tips of your triangles, and you'll be able to see the tips of your triangles perfectly. Because I know sometimes people have the problem of cutting off their points when they're doing flying geese or triangles. So if your, say the top of your geese isn't completely straight, you're going to line it up so it is kind of straight with this other piece, your back piece, and just so above that, if that makes sense. Let me know if this doesn't make sense, because sometimes I don't make sense. So yeah, so then we got our block. This is my finished block. Each week I'm going to be trying to make them with all a little bit different fabric. I had 12 4th yard cuts. So here's my block 2, and here's my block 1. So I don't know if there's any questions. Does anybody have any questions about that? Pretty simple block. Once you get those flying geese down, you know, they'll go together really easily, all these blocks. They're all pretty similar. I tried to make this quilt as cohesive as possible so that these 2 blocks are similar, these 2 blocks are similar, these 2 blocks are similar, these 2 blocks are similar. So it kind of all goes together and it's kind of balanced. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Next week's block will be this guy. Voila, which is kind of a smaller star with just a basic center, which you do a square in a square with this, with the bigger blue square corners. So that's about it for today, I guess. And then next week I will release the block in my on my blog. I'll email out the email. I will post it on my Facebook group, Facebook page, and then on my Instagram page, so that you guys all know, hey, it's ready. And if you're downloading that from Craftsy, you'll get an email from Craftsy saying, hey, the next block is ready. And I will do another live video if you guys need one next week. And also just to answer any questions. I like to check in with you guys to make sure everybody's doing okay. There's no issues. So I will check in next week at 10 a.m. again to see how everybody's doing. I guess have a great day. I hope you guys enjoy making this block. I've already seen a bunch of people already finishing it over in the Facebook group. So you want to say goodbye to everyone, Snow?
Bye.
Bye. We'll see you next week. Goodbye. Goodbye. And